Hello, my name is Vic, and I'm a spokesmodel for the HIV Stops With Me campaign 2022. I'm here to answer the question of the month. And the question of the month is, do you feel that being an HIV Stops With Me spokesmodel can be a heavy burden? Why and why not? For me, I'm gonna say it wasn't, but I believe that it can be, depending on where you are in your journey, in your process, in your life, and how you handle your history. It depends on how you handle feedback. It depends on how you manage your personal life. All these things combined, it can kind of be burdensome if you are not ready for it. The good thing about the campaign is that you're supported throughout the entire process by the managers of the campaign, as well as the other spokesmodels in the campaign. And I'll just start by saying, it can be a burden to tell the whole world that you're HIV positive. It can be if you're not ready for it. Like I said, it depends on where you are. Some people are ready for your friends, your family, even people you intended not to tell to find out. But for the whole world, that's huge. So that can be a burden. And telling your truth, telling your whole story. Particularly if it's some aspects of your history that you haven't dealt with. I'll use myself for an example. The hardest part of this process, or being a part of this campaign, was really looking at my history. I've been doing HIV work for the last 15 years. I've been providing services around prevention, around treatment. My focus over the last 6 years has been to get people who are HIV positive opportunities back to work. Specifically as peer workers, sharing the knowledge that they've already accumulated in managing their own illness to help someone newly diagnosed coming along to help them manage their illness. So when I've been telling my story for the last 6 years, it's usually starting when I'm already undetectable, and now we're talking about my work history and how my diagnosis interacts with that. So I'm not used to telling my story around my diagnosis, the feelings around my exposure and what I was doing. So I had to look at that in order to effectively tell my story. And I found that there were aspects in my history that I wasn't proud of, that I hadn't dealt with, certain traumas that I was still struggling with. So the process of looking at that and getting it to a point in my own head where I'm not traumatizing myself every time I tell my story can be a burden for some people. For me, it was a growth process. I'm still in it. I've grown a little and I expect to grow a lot more. I will use an example. The one thing that I struggled with in my history was accepting the fact that I was promiscuous. I was out there. I was doing what I wanted to do. And I had to learn not to condemn myself for that. The fact that I wanted to do that, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that I didn't protect myself. So when I tell my story, I share that information, but I also ask people to protect themselves. There's no reason to shame yourself about wanting to have sex. And I did, because it was one of those things I didn't tell everybody. I told certain people. And when I looked at it as far as me telling a room full of strangers that, and attaching that to my own face, was something I had to work through. And thank God for this process. Thank God for the support of the campaign and other models in the campaign. I've been able to share that almost from the beginning. And as I share it more, it's less painful for me. So I would say yes. It could be a burden, depending on where you are in your own journey. I say it again. But one thing I will say is that the support that you get from within the campaign is powerful. And it helps you along in this process. So yeah, it may be a burden, but you're not struggling alone. And two, I just wanted to say this last thing. Every one of the models, including myself, who was invited to participate in this process and chose to act on that invite, knew that there would be some work involved, a burden to bear. But we were fine with that, as long as it meant that we could do the things that the campaign promised that we could do. Raise the self-esteem of people living with HIV, end stigma, create those connections to care, building community. As long as I can do that, I'll carry whatever burden I need to carry. And every model in this process, I believe, feels the same way. So I want to thank you for taking the time to listen to me. Keep coming back to the website, checking us out. Have a beautiful day, and I'll see you next month.